Good day, everybody. Long time no see. Yes, I took a month hiatus and I had to take a little break. I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it. I don't know. Sometimes people need breaks. Thank you for my Patreon subscribers down below, the two Chooks and Age Streamers and PHR Fox Coon. Thank you for holding on and continuing to contribute, even though I wasn't making my weekly news episodes. Anyone who wants to support my Patreon can click in the description below. But now that we're going to get back into it, I'm going to start off easy, and we're going to do a little bit of a game review. We played Winds of Change, the spiritual successor to Claces and Tail Underground and Telltales. God, I can't even remember the name of their organization anymore. But basically, produced by Clace and has a whole group of people who worked on this game. So you have Winds of Change. So we're going to review that game for our video back. For those of you who haven't watched the playthrough or our particular Let's Play session of that game, the list is up there in the card above. But be forewarned, it's a long one. So if you got a lot of time on your hands, otherwise, be sure to come by while we play the next game, the next Anthro game, in our series of playing Anthro games on Fridays. We'll be doing Beyond Good and Evil, which is it's an old classic sort of third-person adventure game in a world with Anthro characters. The main protagonist isn't an Anthro character, but there's enough of the Anthro characters to do right by it. So that being said, let's talk about Major Minor. Winds of Change. Now, to talk about Winds of Change, we do kind of have to talk about Major Minor, which was its spiritual predecessor. So back in 2000, I think it was 2017. I think it was either 2017 or 2016. I think it was one of those years that Major Minor had won the Ursa Major for the best video game of the year. Obviously, it was the best marketed. It was It was made by a furry for furries, and that person had a marketing strategy to him, and he had done his part to make it so that he won the Ursa Majors for this year. That being said, this game here, I've played both. I've played both through, and I also have, in case you haven't seen us play that one as well, you can see me playing Major Minor in the other list up above there. Just be forewarned that Major Minor's recordings got a little skimpy somewhere. Audio quality wasn't as great. And on top of that, the chat log for the playthrough is not present because YouTube did not have a log history of the chat as a thing at that point. So I will sound crazy as if I'm talking to myself, but there is actually a chat room there every once in a while. My take on it, as far as the difference between Major Minor and Winds of Change, and the biggest difference to me is how they dealt with exposition, how they dealt with informing the player about what's going on, because they're both visual novels, and the way they handled exposition and information, and giving information to the player is like night and day. And it really does help with the replayability of Winds of Change, because Winds of Change here has something called Parallel Chronicles. So what it does is, Parallel Chronicles is the ability for you as your character, or for you to see side plot as your character. So basically how the premise of the game is this. You play through a scene, you watch some of the your interactions with the other characters. And then it'll kind of do this sort of like your interaction with the world thing. And while you're interacting with the world around you, You can also interact with something called Parallel Chronicles, which will be like a little animal heads in the corner of the screen. And you can click on those. And when you click on those, you can go in and basically see what's going on over there while your guy's, in the present, right? So this does two things. And this solves two big problems I had with Major Minor. Number one, it allows you to see events that are occurring off screen. So because you're allowed to see those events evolve off screen, you are being informed about the world around you without actually having to be there, and without having to hear it from third person speeches. Instead, you get to see the characters interact, and you get to see the drama unfold. Whereas in Major Minor, sometimes what would happen is, sometimes you would see these off-screen things. You would see these parallel chronicles, as it were, those events that are happening in other places. And you would kind of be confused because you're like, well, why am I looking at this? Like, what does this have to do with what I'm doing? And, the context of it is like, okay, maybe it's important. It's a side story that's going on. Maybe it'll be important later. Because you, as the player, have to activate these side stories now, you know what's going on. You know that you're engaging in a side plot, instead of being thrown into the side plot and going, oh, well, now I'm in a side plot. Number two, or actually there's three big things. Number two is like if you play subsequent playthroughs and you're like, oh, I know what happens. Those two characters over there are talking at this point. Oh, I know what their story is. I watched it before. Because all these parallel chronicles, you have no agency in. So basically, you can go out there and you can watch it for your first playthrough, and in subsequent playthroughs, you could just skip it because you already know what occurred. You already know what's going on at the time that it is going on. And that helps speed up subsequent playthroughs, and especially in a game where you have to make major decisions over the course of events that can impact the story. Having a sort of fast lane option in order to not get tied up with story that you already know is actually very, very useful. The thing is that with Major Minor, when we played through it on this channel, I didn't get the optimal ending. I didn't get the good ending, as it were. And honestly, I didn't feel, even though we had gone through the whole thing, I didn't feel, and I did like the experience of playing it with others. I didn't feel the desire off camera or anything to go back and play the game again and to go through all those scenes and to try to find out how to do the optimal ending, because honestly, the story didn't impact me so much as to want to do it again. But this one I very much am like, oh, I'm curious if I did this, and what if I did this instead of this. It's very much one I did go back and play once again after I was done streaming, to see kind of what things would impact, particularly with the relationship things. But we'll get into that in a bit. The third thing that the Parallel Chronicles really, really helps with is if you want to experience the game through your character without Parallel Chronicles. So it's very possible, even though during our Let's Play of this game on the channel, that I played through it and I, watched every single Parallel Chronicle I could, and kind of exhausted the tree, as it were. Exhausting the tree does give this game a lot of meat. It was about I'd say about 25 hours. About 25 hours worth of gameplay. It was about 30, but I would talk to my audience every once in a while and I would pause for them to vote. If you're not since you're not pausing on decisions and you're doing things quicker, I would say it would shave a few hours off of the game time that I had. So it can be a 25-hour game, but if you go through all the Parallel Chronicles without having to go through all those and not exhausting the tree, as it were, and just doing the main decisions and doing fast things, it could take about 2 hours, right? Especially if you're using the skip functions and all that. Getting from beginning to end can be about an hour or about an hour and a half to do it the second time. That's about how long it took for me to do my second playthrough when I tried to change some of the heart-to-heart conversation results and see what happened in the story. That helps. But even if I didn't do that the first time, this is the cool thing about Parallel Chronicles, is that if I wanted to experience this game and go, I only like, as soon as I saw, like, if I did Parallel Chronicle 1 and I said, oh, this has like spoilers in it about like character interaction, right? You know, I'm seeing these characters interact, and it's like, well, I shouldn't really know what's going on. I want to play as myself, and I want to play from my own perspective. So you could technically make it so that you only play the game through your interactions with things and completely ignore the Parallel Chronicles in the first playthrough, just so you're caught off guard by events that you might have otherwise had hinted at by character interactions and things like that. So, like, it really does give you the option of choosing how you want to experience the adventure, which was one of my biggest critiques of Major Minor in the game, where there was sometimes they would do this Parallel Chronicle and force you to see things that you might not even care about. There would also be situations where, and this was particularly heinous, where basically an event had happened in another area, and you had no opportunity to see it. So, like, one of these main villains in the game of Major Minor basically gets their comeuppance. And they get their comeuppance sort of off screen, and the only way you experience it is not through a flashback and not through another storyline. It's basically one character sitting with you and talking to you and telling you exactly what happened. It's sort of like me telling you how, like, if I were to start doing spoilers, and it would be like me telling you like what the end of this game is, and I would explain the game to you, and you'd be like, could I play it, right? Can I experience it? Can I see it? But and you would kind of feel like, oh, why? It's like, I feel like I missed something, right? Because I would be spoiling it for you, or I would be saying it to you, but you wouldn't be experiencing it, and you'd be like, I want to experience it. I don't want to have somebody tell me what happens. And that was a thing that happened in Major Minor, particularly. Where one character was basically telling your character what had happened to this other character, this bad guy character, right? This bad guy character basically, getting their comeuppance. So it made it very anticlimactic, because it happened off screen. The bad guy was taken care of off screen, and then you came back, and then he's saying, oh, I took care of the bad guy is taken care of. And it's like, I would have loved to have seen that. But with this system here in Winds of Change, that kind of situation doesn't do that. And if you don't have to take my word for it that the mechanics of the visual novel make it a better game overall as far as engagement goes. There are Steam statistics kind of show you exactly how much more engaging it is to the gamer, to the person playing it. So here we have down here percentages of the first chapter of the game being completed and the entirety of the game being completed. Now, for Major Minor, you have to understand that I have the standard ending. It's very possible that someone could get the true ending for the first time through. I didn't, but others could. And I think that one was about the true ending was about 2%. So you'd have to say, like, the Major Minor, the completion rate was about 15%. And the completion rate of the first chapter of Major Minor was about 40%. Whereas in Winds of Change, completing the entire game from start to finish has a rate of about 30%. So already it's over double, right? Twice as many people finished Winds of Change than did Major Minor. But also the Fate of Valinor, which is the introductory chapter of the game, which is the Act 1 of the game, is at, I can't read it, 58? About 58%, so it's like almost double the, almost double the chapter 1 for major minor. So it's like there's certainly a percentage difference, as you can see. So players are much more engaged with how Winds of Change handled its visual novel elements versus major minor, showing through the statistical evidence that it is a much better game. One of the things that major minor or Winds of Change also has that adds flavor to it. So Winds of Change has some very big decisions that you have to make. There's I think there's 10 major game-changing ones that you go through and will have a major impact on the story as you go along. And basically it all comes to a head in it has 5 acts. And at the final act is like when all the fruit of your decisions come to bear. But along the way, you also have these things called heart-to-heart conversations, which have you engaging with your colleagues in a more interpersonal manner, and you have these quote-unquote heart-to-heart conversations at periodic points during your adventure. Because you have those situations occurring. And it happens over the course of the adventure, it feels a lot more genuine, a lot more dynamic. The relationships feel a lot more organic, as it were, which is great. You also have different flavors in which each of these interactions can go. You can make your relationship clearly a platonic friendship, or you can, go more intimate, or you can be a little bit adverse and a little snarky with them and have like a sort of a head-butting sort of style of relationship, like a reluctant ally, as it were. So I haven't really tried the reluctant ally route yet. I did during the stream, or Let's Play on the list there. Some people, like the chat, sort of, had flirted with a few characters, made one more of a platonic drinking buddy, and other times, and so like the way that the characters evolved was a little less was a little interesting. Like, it was interesting how those characters had evolved. Interesting, like during my first playthrough with them, I didn't see my characters, my flirting with multiple characters have any odd side effects of the characters questioning each other why I'm flirting with that person when I was also flirting with that person. But I went back through and played it a second time. There was definitely consequences. There was definitely a notice that if you're flirting with one character over here and you flirt with another character over here, those two characters might go, I saw that you were flirting with that guy. So it's interesting, like, how these characters evolve. Luckily, there isn't a situation where I didn't notice that they didn't get into any jealousy rages or anything like that, which is sort of a thing, I guess. But how I won't spoil it too much on how they react. You'll have to find that out for yourself. But visual novels have a tendency of dealing with relationships in a very interesting manner. I think this one is probably one of the better ones I've seen. I haven't played too many visual novels, but I mean this one handled them pretty good. I still am kind of surprised that even though I tried a route where I tried flirting with everybody and it didn't end up getting me in trouble or anything, and changing this visual novel into a visual novella, where it's like, oh, Antonio, how could you do it? How could you do it to me, Antonio? How you're flirting with that man over there? You were mine. Did that apple mean nothing to you, Antonio? Why? You breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart. Why you do this to me, Antonio? So I didn't see any of that. It would be interesting to see if in future visual novels that might be a thing where it's like that there's negative consequences for you playing the field a little too open, right? Playing the field a bit too open without conversing with the characters on your intent to do that. Because it is sort of an ethical thing, right? Where it's like, you know, when you're in an open relationships are great, they're fine, but you need to communicate with your partners, right? You need to tell them what you're doing, right? And like the interesting thing is like while the characters would converse with one another, it's like that you were playing the field a bit open. They would never really confront you directly or talk to you directly about it, or you wouldn't talk to them directly about it. It seemed, which would probably be a difficult thing to do, since you're supposed to be the one engaging the world around you, as your character, and you know, but it's just a thought, food for thought, I guess. One other little thing, a little caveat about that. Obviously it's like I'm being critical, but I do like the fact that the characters, that it's not just like a binary, like they love me or they love me not, or like it's not like a bar between love and hate and it's an up and down. There are dialogue options that are like, well, I want to be your drinking buddy, or you know, like I like you but I don't love you, and or like not even like the between, like there's always like offshoots, right? It's not as simple as A or B. It's not like a bar between A and B. That's not how it doesn't feel like that's how the relationships work. I don't know if that's true or not, but that means it's well designed. But there is one other thing, obviously, I must note. The characters of your colleagues in which you interact with, there is a sort of a gender disparity. You can have, in your main party, you usually have about 5 male characters and you have like 1 female character. There's only 1 female character that you get on your party and can have, relations and discussions with, and heart-to-hearts with. So that means if your character is a female character, and like if you want to play as a lesbian female character or as a straight male character, you only have like one option for romance if that's what you want to do, and that can be an issue. Obviously, if you're anything other than those 2 things, there's plenty of different personality types and archetypes that I think that you'll find one of the characters that you will like to engage in, and become close friends with and do all that stuff. It is what it is. But it's just something to note. Is that there is no balance between male characters and female characters. There's definitely more male characters and more well fleshed out male characters than there are female characters. Even in general, just like in not even just even with the companions that you have, but in the game in general with male characters and female characters. There's not too many female characters. In the playthroughs that I have done so far, Valessa, who is your female wolf companion, I believe, and Comrade is the only real character that there was to engage in. Certain decision trees that you have later on down the line. There's one where you have to choose which group of pirates to work with on a particular mission, and one of them is a male pirate and the other one's a female pirate, which have different causes and effects and things that they'll go into more when you play the game yourself. So none of the playthroughs that I did ever utilized the female pirates brigade, so it would be interesting to see how that would change the story as well. But there isn't that many female characters or strong female characters. I know Clay said he was going to sort of take a break from doing all this game design and game work stuff. So, like, obviously in the future, if he comes back to it, having more of the fairer gender present would be great. Having different characters like that with different representations on that would be good to have. That being said, as far as like game design and game development itself, I did write a Flavor article which goes over this review and the content in which we discussed here in a written form, so it's probably bite-sized. It's probably quicker to read it than it is to watch me ramble at a camera for a half hour. But interestingly enough, there was comments that came up. There was like a really quick comment that came up about some of the issues that Clace and their team had when developing Major Minor, in that there was some bad blood that occurred due to some snafus that Clace had done during his initial creation process, where he had accidentally stiffed some people. Seems like intentionally stiffed some people, but then ended up whether they made amends with the artists or whatever, I'm not sure. However, it does seem like he was able to get another artist, and he worked with a large team that did voice acting and music and a whole bunch of coding and different things. So it seems like he was whatever mistakes that Clace had made as a producer during his Major Minor development. He has improved upon that as well, and I haven't heard anything about any major dramatic issues that occurred or snafus that occurred within the business development process of Winds of Change, like there was with Major Minor. Interestingly, I will add one thing about the Major Minor one, is that I did learn something from that, and apparently, Clace had made an apology over it. And one of the things noted is that during Major Minor, he had a character that was a Sergal. And if those of you not familiar with what a Sergal is, it is a customized, an animalized character that is completely unique to the furry fandom. It is a species that is created completely within the furry fandom. There's a few of them. Dutch Angel Dragon is one. There is, Cruxes. There's Sergals. So these are species that don't really exist. They're fantasy species, but they're not mainstream fantasy species. They're species that were developed by furry fans. And of those species, there are closed species and open species. Now, usually when it says closed, it means that if you want to create a Dutch Angel Dragon, you have to go to the person who created the Dutch Angel Dragon, who was Telephone, or Ino, and you would have to go with them and say, hey, I want to have a Dutch Angel Dragon character. Am I allowed to have that? And she would, give you her blessing or not. That's what a closed species is. Sergals are not closed species. If you want to be a Sergal, you can be a Sergal. But apparently there's a caveat to it, which I didn't know until this whole thing that I had read. And I'm not, to me, I'm not surprised that Clace didn't know about this when he did it. Is that apparently if you are using a Sergal in something that you pay money for, right, and that if you use a Sergal in something that you're making a profit off of, basically, that you need to reach a license agreement with the creator of the Sergal. That I did not know, and I'm surprised that I'm not surprised that Clace didn't know that. If I've been in this fandom for 2 decades now, and I know what a Sergal is, right? But I didn't know, and I did not know that it was a licensed character if you're using that character to in a work that is being sold, right? So apparently that kerfluffle led to sort of a thing where Clace was blindsided by it, and he was kind of frustrated that he had developed a character that he would have to either remove from the game or pay a license fee for. And it sounds like he didn't handle it too well when he learned about it, and he apologized that he didn't handle it too well, etc., etc. But also there was another issue with the artist and stuff like that. So he learned some hard licks about running a business and developing video games and trying to be fair to the people who work under him. And it sounds like in Winds of Change that he had had tempered what he had learned and gotten better for it. And both in the creation of his game, both in the creation of the game that he set out to create, and as a person. And to me, improving upon one's craft is the most important thing. He made his apologies to that person, those people that he had wronged. Those individuals either accepted his apology or they didn't, and that's their business. But at the end of the day, he learned from the mistakes he made. He took his nose to the grindstone and he completed another game. And from the lack of sounds of it at this time, it seems like he had learned from the mistakes of his past. And I think we as gamers and we as people in the furry fandom should always applaud when that occurs, because there are plenty of gaming companies out there in the mainstream and AAA industry that don't learn from their mistakes, that continue to make the same mistakes and exploitations over and over and over again without learning from them. That they don't change, right? They don't change themselves to meet to meet that high bar. And so when somebody does do that, and when somebody does improve what they do and who they are and what they accomplish, I think that we should do our part to congratulate them on their success in doing so. And hopefully they continue to improve. And as Clay said, he's taking a break from game development, but if he ever comes back to it, I do look forward to whatever he plans on next. Obviously, he might do things other than video game development. We'll see. Anyways, that's enough for today. Thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to kick that like, kick the subscribe button, or kick a comment in the comment section. Have you played Major Winds of Change yet, and how did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the game or anything like that? I'm going to get the hop out of here, and we'll see you guys again next week. I promise I'll try I'll try to be better myself and not be so lazy and try to make videos in a more timely fashion, okay? All right? I'll try to do that for you. All right? Have a good day.